Sports on Tap's high school football coverage is on every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Watch live on YouTube and make sure to subscribe.
Have you compared insurance rates lately? Are you satisfied with your current insurance provider? If not, look no further than Ray Felton State Farm, a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap. For a free quote, call his office at 234-284-2996 or visit him online at rayfelton.com.
Whether you're hosting a corporate event, wedding, conference, concert, or any other special gathering, our comprehensive range of services will exceed your expectations and elevate your event to new heights. RRT Productions. We shoot, we edit, you win. Visit our website at www.rrt-productions.com.
We've got the experience, the passion, and the beach to make your event a smash hit. Whether it's a romantic wedding, a lively sports venue, or a rocking high school dance, Troutland Entertainment has you covered. Contact them at 330-414-4261 or email them at troutlandent@gmail.com. That's troutlandent@gmail.com. Elevate your brand with Mako Custom Printing. Mako Custom Printing specializes in creating high-quality spiritware, corporate apparel, and promotional products that make your brand stand out. Whether you need custom printing, graphic design, or an online store for your school or business, we've got you covered. Make a statement with Mako Custom Printing. Visit us at mako.com to start your custom printing journey today. That's MEHCO.com. All right, welcome to Sports on Tap Extra. I'm Rob Troutman. Joining me is Noah Jacobson, and our guest tonight, he's been calling professional hockey games since 2002. He does a great job. He's a graduate of Bowling Green State University, where he graduated in 2002, and he made his NHL broadcasting debut for the New York Islanders in 2006, where he spent 3 years. Then he went to the Pittsburgh Penguins, covered radio and television broadcasts, game broadcasts there, hosted Penguins Live for 4 seasons. He's the voice of the Columbus Blue Jackets, where he's calling television play-by-play and is the announcer there. He is Steve Mears. And Steve, thanks for taking time to join us. We really appreciate it.
Anytime. Always good to talk hockey, especially with a fellow Falcon. And I credit BG for my success and just the foundation, laying that groundwork of just becoming a broadcaster. It had to start somewhere, and if it wasn't doing video games, announcing while I played against my brothers in Sega Genesis, it was actual hands-on experience that actually counted for something at BG. So I'm forever grateful and appreciative of those 4 years.
Well, yeah, and Steve, talking a little bit about where you grew up. You grew up in Murraysville, Pennsylvania. And that was a question I had for you. When you were a kid, did you always know you wanted to call games and do play-by-play, like mute the television? I know I did that all the time. Mute the TV no matter what sport it was and try to call games and record myself.
Yeah, but it was specifically hockey. I mean, that's what I wanted to do. I just love the game so much. And I still play to this day. I was part of that Western Pennsylvania generation in the early 90s that got into the sport, where it surpassed football and baseball and all the other great sports in that region because of the success of the Penguins. They had the greatest player. They had the greatest announcer in Mike Lang, who I always wanted to be like, and I thought he had the coolest job in the world. So it just was this perfect storm of all these factors at that impressionable age of 10, 11. Penguins were such a powerhouse. So, it started with that, but then you start to work your way up the ladder, and you appreciate other athletes or other broadcasters, and then you go to Bowling Green, and you get to see the rich history of Falcon hockey. But while I was there, the Columbus Blue Jackets come into existence. So my junior year was year one of the CBJ, and we came down for games a lot. So it's almost like this is a second home for me. And I think because of that connection, I've always had a fondness for Ohio, and many friends that I made in those 4 years of Bowling Green, and then always a fondness for the Jackets. Always wanted to see them do well, and now to be on the good side of things and calling games for the Jackets, for such a tremendous organization, first class in everything that they do. It's truly a dream come true. We've just it's almost surreal. We've been so fortunate to land in this spot.
Steve, thank you for taking the time and joining us tonight. It's a great honor for me to be talking to you tonight. You know, you've been inspired by so many broadcasters like Gary Thorne, Doc Emmerich, and many others that you can name. But just kind of talk about how awesome those guys have really inspired you to become the broadcaster that you are right now with the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, those are some great ones. There's a long list. There's still a list. I mean, I'm still studying, and you always look toward all the greats, whether it's Al Michaels or Mike Tirico or Joe Buck, or it doesn't even have to be hockey. You just learn so much watching sports and seeing how the very best in the business do it. And you mentioned Doc Emmerich. There's a Bowling Green Falcon right there. So we've always had that connection, the BG connection. And always talked about that whenever I would run into him. I miss him so much because he's now retired, but he was a big influence. I'd never heard anybody do a game quite like him. When I started listening to him when he was doing the NHL on Fox in the 90s, and then he would do NBC, of course. And when I got to the New York Islanders, he was the TV voice of the New Jersey Devils. So we would play the Devils like 8 times a season, and I would see him a lot. And I would get to compare notes with him, and he would share so much of his great information with me, and he's just the nicest man. And really appreciate everything he's taught me over the years. Doc Emmerich is just the best. But yeah, there's so many different influences. You just pay attention to different people along the way in those formative years, and then eventually it all kind of melds together into what becomes your style. And I think if you really, really listen to my current way of doing the games, there's a little bit of Mike Lang, there's some Doc Emmerich, there's Gary Thorne, there's probably some Bob Costas in there. I mean, there's a lot of different influences, and that's how it usually goes. And as long as you're still learning and you're still trying to learn and trying to absorb as much information as possible, then you're a constant work in progress, and that's how I always look at it.
How did you decide on Bowling Green? You know, how did you even hear about Bowling Green? Coming from Pennsylvania, did you look up, what were some good broadcasting schools that were hands-on, or what was your decision to end up going to Bowling Green State University?
Well, the only reason I knew about it is because of the hockey program. I remember watching games in the NHL and hearing, oh, Gary Galley, he went to Bowling Green. He was a Falcon. Rob Blake was a Falcon. Ken Clee. George McPhee, Mike Liud, I mean, all these guys, Dave Ellett, that I was watching, keep hearing Bowling Green, well, where's this school at that's producing all these great NHL players? And then you start doing some research. Oh, it's only 4 hours away from home, and it turns out it's got a fantastic broadcasting program, and you can get on the air right away as a freshman, and I might be able to call games. This is what I want to do. I might be able to call games for Division I hockey, Bowling Green, maybe see some future NHLers and cover the team in any way. So I remember ordering the Bowling Green media guide when I was in high school, and I was interested in going to BG, and I started studying Falcon hockey like before I even got there. And then I applied. I think it was the only school I applied to, and I was fortunate enough to get in, and went to the campus and saw the town and just fell in love with the whole place. I mean, it was idyllic. It's the perfect place to go to school. For me, it was the perfect size and close enough to home, and it just had a wonderful charm to it. So I was studying right away. I was like, I want to do play-by-play. Little did I know, because the program's so good and then they treated us so well, that I got to do games as a freshman. I got to get on the air. I was 18 years old and got to do games, and I treated it like it was the Super Bowl times 10. I mean, it was a huge deal. So I'm so appreciative of that. Just like a lot of schools, you have to wait till you're a junior or a senior. And there I was as a freshman getting to do Division I hockey with some guys that made it to the NHL, like Mike Camilleri and Ryan Miller, and Chris Kunitz was at Ferris State, and Ohio State had a bunch of great players like R.J. Umberger and Dave Steckel and so forth. So, just so grateful that I got to go to a place that was going to give me that hands-on experience. I tell students all the time, that's what's really important, is getting the hands-on experience, getting the reps, getting on the air, and practicing your craft as much as you possibly can, even if it's into a microphone, it's just in your phone, whether it's, or back then it was a tape recorder. It doesn't matter, as long as you get that hands-on experience and as much of it as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Even traveling with the teams, I thought was a great experience. Learning how to prep kind of on the road, talking to you kind of learn how to talk to players and coaches, and you learn a lot, just by talking to others that have done it. What was your favorite spot in Bowling Green? I know we always went to Broad House, and you go to a lot of different places. There's pizza places and tons of food. Poly Eyes. Every time we go back, have you gone back to Bowling Green recently, or in the last few years?
No, it's probably been 10 years. I did go to a game. I think it was the work stoppage in 2013 in the NHL. I was so hungry for hockey and poly-eyed breadsticks, but mostly for hockey. And I went during that time. I was like, I got to see a game somewhere live. So why not take advantage? The NHL was shut down for half the season. Why not drive over and spend a weekend at Bowling Green? And I went and saw them play Ferris State, and it was awesome. It was so much fun to go back there and catch a game. But that was 2012 or 2013, so it's been a long time. Right around that same time, I drove up to Erie to see this 16-year-old kid who everybody was talking about play against the Oshawa Generals, and that was Connor McDavid. So I got to see him play during that work stoppage at age 16, and he was as advertised, even though he's playing against players who are much older than him. So yeah, I haven't been back, but now being closer, like 2 hours away from BG, I can't wait to get back. We have a gap in the schedule at some point. Love to bring my family up there. I love the poly-iced breadsticks. I loved Miles Pizza, which I hear is no longer there. They moved. Mr. Spot's cheesesteaks. My mom is from Philadelphia. She said that was the best cheesesteak she's ever had outside of Philly. And it was the best. It was the Broad House. So the Broad House, like all the hockey guys would hang out there. And I would try to weasel my way in to hang out with everybody. But then you get to know all these other people, like Dan Bilesma, who's coaching the Seattle Kraken. He went there in the late 80s, early 90s. And then when I worked for the New York Islanders, Kenny Morrow, he went there in the 70s. So you got multiple generations that have been hanging out and having beers and whatever else at the Broad House there at Bowling Green. I mean, Kenny Morrow, that was there late 70s, had a lot of success. Then he goes from Bowling Green to the Miracle on Ice in 1980 with Team USA. And then he goes from there to the New York Islanders, and he's a key part of their 4 cups in a row, the Islanders dynasty, 19 straight playoff series wins. So when you talk about a run, and I guess it all started at the Broad House for Kenny Morrow. So it's just great to see the lineage and all of these guys who came through BG and their hockey program, and they all had very similar paths, and a lot of that same infrastructure is still in place.
Steve, going back to when you got hired by the Blue Jackets, I'm sure it had to be a surreal feeling for you, growing up as a fan, watching those games like Jeff Rumer calling amazing plays, like when Rick Nash would score all those goals, Nick Foligno with the playoff game winner in 2014 against the Penguins. But just kind of talk about what's it like calling those games in front of the Blue Jackets fans, and even talk about what's it like working with Jody Sally, who even has been with the Blue Jackets for a long time as a color analyst.
Yeah, and of course as a player going back to pretty much year number 1. Jody's great, one of the best in the business. I'm really fortunate. That was one of the big draws for me with this job, was a chance to get to work with him, and I think we've really built the chemistry here early on. It's only going to continue to grow. Jeff Rimmer's been really helpful to me. Anything I've needed, it's been a great resource. I know he's only a phone call or a text away if there's any type of information that I need, or he was very helpful in areas to live and what the city's all about and what the organization is like, and just giving me the real story of what's going on in Columbus. So very helpful. And it's an honor. I think the fan support with the Blue Jackets is second to none. I mean, they are just so passionate and so supportive of the team, even now with a couple of lean years here, to still pack that building and to have this fervor, this passion for the team. and wanting to know more about the different personalities on the team. And that's what we're trying to do, is to bring some of those stories to life on the TV broadcast. Just in the time from the summer events to the training camp, I got a chance to talk to so many Blue Jackets fans. They've been so welcoming, and always going to be appreciative of the fifth line for just welcoming me into the family, treating me like a family member, and just going to try to keep doing the best job that we can do on the TV side. And the dream is that the team gets back to prominence, kind of like those memories that you mentioned there. And the ultimate dream is to be a part of a Stanley Cup parade down Nationwide Boulevard. I think that's what everybody with the fifth line and the organization, I think that's all what we're envisioning someday. And hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and Steve, going back to, obviously, after Bowling Green, you were doing games with the Central Hockey League. And I'm sure you got your feet wet in there because you were the director of media relations and broadcasting, which I know once you start, and I apply to many jobs doing, play-by-play with minor league organizations where you kind of do it all. Is that what it was kind of in that league? Because I know in 2000 you did that from 2002 to 2006, and then you were named the Central Hockey League Broadcast of the Year in 2005. What an experience that probably was to do a little bit of everything and to prep you and get you ready for the big stage, obviously, when you went to the NHL and have been doing games there for a long time.
Yeah, I always said it's like undergrad was at Bowling Green, and then I got my master's in hockey in Shreveport, Louisiana, in the Central Hockey League. That was my master's degree. I mean, I learned everything about the business of running a sports franchise. It wasn't so much about the play-by-play. It was about the people. It was about those roles that you talked about. And the broadcasting was like 5 or 10% of the job. It was game notes. It was meals for the players after the game. It was the hotel in the next city. It was school appearances, some sales, just getting the word out about Mudbugs hockey. And I was so unbelievably lucky to land there, basically packing up my car and moving from Bowling Green after I graduated, in a matter of weeks after I graduated, down to Shreveport, Louisiana. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And it turned out to be the greatest time of my life. And the people, I'm still such good friends with all the players, the GM, the head coach, all these great people that I met down there, fans. I have such fondness for that hockey market, and it is a very good hockey market. And it was perfect for someone who was in his young, early to mid-20s, and they didn't have to pay a whole lot of money, and I just wanted to go down there. I just wanted to learn. I wanted to be a sponge and learn as much as I could about everything. And I got a crash course on so many aspects. And, you're helping the equipment managers unload gear at some rodeo barn in Odessa, Texas at 4 in the morning when it's like 38 degrees outside. And I wouldn't change anything. I like 20-hour bus rides from Louisiana to Colorado, Louisiana to Indianapolis. And the guys were the best. They treated me so well. Like I was one of the guys. So I wish I could just get in a time machine and go back and just relive all those years, because it was so much fun. It was like nonstop fun. And that was another aspect of just like the reps of doing a game with minimal preparation. The prep work was really doing the game notes. That was my broadcast prep. And then just learning all these things about hockey and about life and about sports and the business side of sports and how they're trying to make money and different promotions. And we had wacky promotions, all different ones, like a lot of minor league teams have. So, it was a great crash course in just the business side of hockey. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that experience.
What advice would you give kids out there that are trying to learn play-by-play for hockey and really to prepare for a hockey game?
Yeah, you're right. It's a lot of memorization. The ironic thing is you get to the highest levels, and that memorization part becomes easier because you know all the players. Like Sidney Crosby is never going to not be 87. Evgeny Malkin's going to be 71. Jamie Benn's going to be 14. It's Connor McDavid is going to be 97. So there isn't as much memorization necessary. So I have a lot of respect for the people that do, whether it's college or high school or junior, where you have a lot of turnover at the rosters and everything. And it's just that memorization is just a matter of quizzing yourself and doing that prep and putting the work in. And I still, it may not be actual memorization of like sitting there and looking at a roster and quizzing myself as much with this job, but I'm still scouring over articles and notes and stats and podcasts. And I literally, before we got on here, I was watching the first period of the San Jose Sharks game from last night to prep for the game we have on Tuesday. And they're a team that has had a lot of turnovers, so there actually is a lot of that memorization. But it's just about the preparation that goes for any job, but especially any type of public speaking, or it's all about being prepared, and that'll help you with your confidence and just have you ready to go when it's time to be on the air. But you're right, it is a difficult sport to do just because of the speed. The game has never been faster at the NHL level, and you don't have a whole lot of time to weave in stories or stats or anything. It's a lot of play calling because the game is so fast. Baseball and football are much different, especially on television, because the picture exists, and obviously it's a slower pace. Football, I mean, the action itself is in like 5 or 10-second bursts, and you can kind of weave some stories in there. Hockey does not have that luxury, and it is a lot of editing, I would say, whenever you're trying to describe, especially on television, because there's no need to describe everything. So it's a constant editing process of like what's really important to say, and sometimes the answer is saying nothing. And on TV, just kind of laying out, as we say, is the better option. But usually in television, less is more. And then if you're doing radio play-by-play, it's all about painting the picture. And that's what I think a lot of young announcers, if you're on the radio, we all, my generation and certainly the younger generations, came up in a television world. So you heard a lot of TV style of play-by-play. But if you go way back and you listen to the old-time radio announcers, they're the very best at those painting the picture description, which you just don't quite hear as much anymore, like the goalie drinking the water bottle. You got to paint the picture of everything that's going on, the geography of the rink, where the puck is, the circle, the lines, the corners, in the crease, the way the players move the puck around. And like even in baseball, something like describing a batter's stance, stuff like that, that's just the gold for radio. That should be a part of just about every radio broadcast. And I think that there's an old school mentality that we could learn from when it comes to radio play-by-play for all sports from several generations way before us, that they had it down pat, where they absolutely painted the picture and it was so vivid and make you feel like you could see it and you were there.
You know, Steve, the Cleveland Monsters last year, they had a great playoff run last year, and they won the North Division for the first time, I think, in their program history. And then they had that epic 7-game series against the Hershey Bears. And there was a lot of young up-and-coming stars like Jack Greaves, Trey Fix-Wolanski, kind of guys who really competed last year in the playoffs. But just kind of talk about, who do you expect really to come out from the Cleveland Monsters really affiliate to really play for the Blue Jackets, possibly for the future, and even possibly play for this season?
Yeah, one guy who was a part of that playoff run with the Monsters last year in the conference final, he jumped right in from junior and didn't miss a beat, like he was a 10-year veteran, was Denton Mateychuk. And I know the organization is extremely excited about him, and I see why after watching him in the preseason, after watching him in the rookie tournament, and seeing the skills that this guy has, the numbers he put up in junior. Offensive defenseman, he's not big, but he's a flashy offensive D-man that puts up some huge numbers and just has a poise about his game where there's no panic whatsoever. And for a young player, especially a smaller defenseman, just getting his feet wet at the professional level, to have that amount of poise like a veteran is so impressive. So Denton Mateychuk, future's really bright for him. But yeah, as you said, there's a lot of good young players at Cleveland. I think they got a lot of confidence, have to, going back to their run that they had last year, starting with the goaltender Jet Greaves. He had like a .926 save percentage in the playoffs, and to get all the way to Game 7 of the conference final, yeah, it didn't work out, but to mount the comeback that they did, unbelievable job by head coach Trent Vogelhuber. I was so impressed by him, getting to know him in training camp this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of these young guys, and I'll be tracking the progress, always wondering what the Monsters are doing and who could be that guy, who's that next player that's going to get a shot. I mean, we saw here Mikhail Putia was playing for the Monsters and now had a great training camp. He earned a spot here, and he hasn't been out of the lineup, so he's He's really playing well with the Blue Jackets. David Jiricek was part of the Monsters last year, and he just played the other night, and he's still getting his feet wet at the NHL level. So future really bright for some of these young players. It's nice to know that not only do you have a really good feeder system in the AHL with Cleveland, but you also have symmetry in the way that they play, the messaging, and the entire organization is on the same page. You have to have that cohesion, and the Blue Jackets and the Monsters certainly have that.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun to see, the Monsters and Blue Jackets work together because going to see a Columbus Blue Jackets game, there's nothing better than that. I mean, the entertainment value is there, the excitement, and that's the same for Monsters game. I've gone to many, many Monsters games, and the entertainment is great. It's high percentage hockey that, they score a lot of goals. They have a lot of talent there, and it's really fun to watch. Now, talking a little bit about the Blue Jackets, I know this is your first season, but the front office has gone through a little bit of changes. Don Waddle is the GM there, and he's done a great job. They hired a new head coach in Dean Avison there, and I think this team looks a little bit different than it did last season. I think they're playing a lot faster and with a little bit more confidence. At least I know it's early on in the season so far, but what have you seen with Coach Avison that you've liked to see this season so far?
Yeah, I think you're seeing that cooperative play and everybody on the same page. It's really important. I think his message has gotten through, and everybody is buying in. I love seeing that. It's got to be cohesive. It's got to be cooperative, and that's in all three zones. I know he's emphasized that type of play and setting a standard and playing what he calls winning hockey and trying to avoid these. Yeah, you have these one-offs. You're not going to play a flawless game or have a flawless season, and you're going to have some flunkers along the way. Jackets have had a couple of them here lately. But making sure that the standard is upheld, and head coach Dean Avison, he's done a great job of maintaining the standard, making it very clear what that expectation is, starting with day one of training camp. Did a lot of teaching, and then making sure it's upheld. And if not, then you're probably not going to be in the lineup. So really impressed by his approach, the positivity that he's brought to the entire organization. And Don Waddell, same thing. They have done such a tremendous job in steering this franchise over the last 3 months. It's really something to see. Right? I'm just very fortunate to be working with them and to bring in two guys that have a ton of experience, too. That's the most important thing. Experienced GM, really experienced coach, and they're sharing that knowledge with not only the players, but us broadcasters and the entire organization. Just two really savvy hockey people.
Looking at Johnny Gaudreau and that situation, I think the Blue Jackets have done an amazing job. I didn't personally know Johnny Gaudreau, but you could tell what he's done in the community in Columbus and really around hockey. He's an amazing guy off and on the ice. Talk a little bit about what the Columbus Blue Jackets and the community there has done, because I thought they did a great job, including the family of Johnny Gaudreau in a lot of things this season, and really playing hockey for him this season. He meant so much to the Blue Jackets, and when they signed him in the offseason, I thought that was just an absolute huge signing, because the Blue Jackets never really had a superstar like that come to play in Columbus, and seemed like just an absolute great guy. It was an unfortunate event, and obviously everybody misses him. But what have you seen there in Columbus, obviously with the organization that they've been doing for Johnny Gaudreau and his family? Because I think it's been a great story that they've continued on his memories and all the videos they've had for him of just his season and being in the community. I thought was a really nice gesture by the Blue Jackets so far.
Yeah, the organization, they have done an incredible job and have struck all the right notes with this tragedy in honoring Johnny and making sure his presence is still there, whether it's in the locker room or on the concourse and with the banner in the arena and that home opening game. which was so unbelievably emotional. I'll never forget that as long as I'm in this business and as long as I'm alive. That was just such an incredibly emotional night all around. A very hard broadcast to do for us. Hard to talk when you see something there that's just supercharged with sadness and emotion. But I love the approach that they've taken and how everybody grieves differently, and to talk about Johnny, talk about some of the jokes and the fun times, some smiles along the way, in addition to tears, obviously. And I love the Blue Jackets players. Their post-game award for the player of the game is a donkey hat, because that's something Johnny would always call some of his teammates in a joking, playful manner, and I could totally hear him saying that. So I love stuff like that. That they're keeping his memory alive, and the fans as well. Right away, there was that memorial that was outside with people dropping off Skittles and Gatorade bottles and jerseys and sticks, and that was overwhelming for me when I went over there outside Nationwide a few days after it happened, and to see that and to sign the sign, and to see kids walk up and place flowers or a hockey jersey there amongst the other pieces of memorabilia to honor Johnny. It was really emotional. The organization's done a fantastic job, and he'll never be forgotten. I was lucky enough to interview him many, many times, and to watch him, and the way he played was just it was so special. He was just such an inspiration to the 5'10" and under crowd, because the fact that he was able to do what he did as a superstar in the NHL, being an undersized player, a later draft pick, and a guy that everyone said would never make it in the NHL. It's a true amazing story, and he and Matthew are obviously missed so dearly.
Talk a little bit about, some of the free agent pickups. Sean Monahan, what a story that was. He obviously came to Columbus because of Johnny Gaudreau and scoring a game-winning goal early on. What a story he had. And you look at the free agents that they brought in, and then you look at goaltending with Elvis Merzlikins, and you have Tarasov also there. Kind of younger guys. I know Elvis has been here a little bit, and I feel like with Columbus, it's tough for me. I'm on the outside looking in, but it was an up and down season last year. Obviously, last season was a little bit of a struggle. We have a lot of young guys on this team, but talk about some of the free agents that they brought in and what you think about these goaltenders in Columbus. Do you think they're going to get the job done here coming up this year?
Yeah, that was a big question for me, because that's the most important position, and there have been a lot of good moments with both guys. Tarasov started off with a great record at a rough game in the last outing against the Washington Capitals. Elvis Merzlikins also had a rough outing in his last one, but prior to that, he only gave 1 goal in 2 games and was incredible, by far the number 1 star in a shutout victory against the New York Islanders. So also shut down the Edmonton Oilers. I love the poise. There's a calmness to Merzlikins' game that apparently he didn't have last year, talking with some of the people who were around last season. I love his approach mentally coming in, and that's a big part of that position. So it's really important. It's also nice to know that they have depth in the organization, and Jet Greaves, who I mentioned earlier, that had that great run in the AHL playoffs. That if one of these 2 guys falters, they can bring Jet up, and he just was up due to the Elvis. He had a minor injury. To know that you got somebody there who's young and has a really bright future. You have to have depth in all positions, and goaltending is no different. So I think that will continue to be something to keep an eye on, because if you're going to have success, if you're going to make the playoffs, you have to have goaltending. You can be lacking in just about every other facet, but you better have at least decent goaltending if you want to get the 90 to 97 points or whatever it's going to take to get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. But so far, so good with Elvis Merzlikins. As long as he can stay healthy, and if he continues to put up some of these numbers like he has in his last few starts, then the Jackets are going to have a chance.
So, Steve, you obviously spent 3 years in the Islanders and 10 years with the Penguins and that, but just kind of talk about what were some of the most memorable calls throughout your NHL broadcasting career, and even with the Blue Jackets right now, but just kind of talk about what were some of the most memorable calls that you have made so far as a broadcaster in the NHL so far?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I mean, a lot of them having worked for the Penguins, a lot of them center around Sidney Crosby. I mean, to watch him, to have basically a front row seat to him in his prime or close to it, it's awfully special. And I've been really lucky. I've gotten to do 4 Stanley Cup Finals, so 2 Penguin Cups, a Blues Cup, the Capitals' first cup. Crosby's 500th goal, that was one that really stands out because that's such a major milestone for all the great players. Like the 500th goal, it's like 3,000 hits in baseball. I mean, it's a major benchmark milestone, for Crosby to do it at home against Philadelphia Flyers, it was storybook stuff. Crosby's goal in Edmonton was really special, overtime winner, highlight reel goal. And that was a big showdown, him against McDavid, and then Crosby does that, and that was a big game in Edmonton in overtime, 6-5 game, and he scores this unbelievable goal in OT. And then I was lucky enough to do 5 World Juniors, and so it's not NHL, but it sure was a lot of future NHL stars. And 2017 Team USA, in thrilling fashion, wins in prime time in Montreal and wins the gold medal in a shootout against Team Canada in Canada. That was probably the greatest broadcasting experience that I've ever had, because that tournament is such a big deal north of the border. And for it to be all those circumstances that I just said, and U.S. against Canada, and then the drama with which it unfolded, and for Team USA to pull it out, and then looking back and seeing all the players that are now in the NHL, like Charlie McAvoy and Luke Cunnin, and who else was on that team? And it was like Clayton Keller and Tage Thompson and Jack Roslovic. I mean, unbelievable. Adam Fox. It was a loaded team, and you see why they had so much success. So that was a real fond memory, that 2017 Team USA gold medal win at the World Juniors.
Been fun so far. It's been really a lot of fun listening to you and watching you on TV. You've done a great job, and we can't thank you enough for coming on our show. I know you have a little one at home, so hopefully you're going to get some sleep, because you're probably leaving? Are you leaving tomorrow? Obviously, to go to, I think it's San Jose is the next game.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's a 10-day road trip, and spent the entire day with the little man. So I'm going to miss him a lot. That's one of the downsides of these jobs. But we know that's what we sign up for. That's part of it. And it will be nice to be there. And anytime you go on a road trip, there is a fun aspect to it, especially with a new organization. It's a real good bonding opportunity for someone like me who's coming in, and I'm only just a month into the job. But first and foremost, going to miss my little guy and my wife. And we love living here in Columbus. So I miss, whenever I'm gone, I miss our home and our neighborhood, and just because I love it here so much. But yeah, looking forward to getting on the road, and hopefully the Jackets can pick up some victories, certainly some winnable games against some of the teams that are toward the bottom of the Western Conference or rebuilding, like San Jose and Anaheim. They're younger teams, and I think the Jackets have a real good chance to have a great road trip, trying to shake off a couple of losses. And it is just like the unfortunate part of the job. Everyone thinks it's very glamorous, and we're on the team plane, and we're on this nice fancy hotel, the Ritz-Carlton, and these fancy meals, and getting into the hockey games for free and all that. But you don't forget about, and this goes for the players too, you don't forget about the sacrifice of wives, and how difficult it is to be away from your loved ones, and especially your children, and when they're at this age. But that's the good thing is we're living in an era with FaceTime and daycare updates, and a lot of technology that you can take advantage of.
Well, and I'm sure you used to probably ride buses around in the minor leagues, and I know BG. For a while I was driving everywhere. With eventually the women's basketball team took me on some bus trips, but for the most part it was driving your own car to different places. They were a little closer, obviously, than where you're going, but it was a great time. But yeah, we really appreciate you coming on and talking with us, and giving us some tips, obviously, and getting to know you a little bit. You're doing a great job with Columbus. Excited to see the future in this season of Columbus Blue Jackets hockey. It's been fun so far, and I hope it continues, because they're playing a little bit different than they did last year. Last year was tough, but you're going to go through those with a young team, and I think it was a good experience for them, and they're looking to play a lot more high potential hockey here that I think they're gonna do well.
I agree with you. It's definitely a more competitive team. It's a harder working team. And I love that the message has gotten through and there's a standard that is expected to be maintained. So we're seeing that here in the first month, and appreciate the kind words. We're having a lot of fun on the broadcast. We're going to try to keep it going, and hopefully everybody will stay up late and catch some late night hockey with the Jackets out on the West Coast.
Absolutely. And if you're ever coming to Cleveland for Monsters, let us know, and we could take you around Cleveland before the game. Have some fun.
That'd be great. Yeah, I've not spent a whole lot of time in Cleveland, just once or twice. Been there, so I've been to a Cavs game. I have been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but that was like in the BG days, so it's been a long time since then. So I've got a lot I want to cover, and now that I'm a little closer, and hoping to get back to BG as well. So I got a lot now. I've hardly ever been to Cincinnati. That's another city I'd love to get to and check that out. So maybe in the off season get to explore a little more, but I'll let you know.
There you go. Well, enjoy it. Have a safe trip, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. That is Steve Mears, play-by-play voice of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I want to thank him for joining us. Well, thanks, Noah, for joining me here on Sports on Tap Extra. Again, want to thank Steve Mears, the voice of the Columbus Blue Jackets, for joining us. I want to thank you for watching this here on YouTube and on our website, sportsontappodcast.com. I'm Rob Troutman. Want to thank you for joining us here on Sports on Tap Extra. We'll see you next time. Sports on Tap's high school football coverage is on every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Watch live on YouTube and make sure to subscribe.
Have you compared insurance rates lately? Are you satisfied with your current insurance provider? If not, look no further than Ray Felton State Farm, a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap. For a free quote, call his office at 234-284-2996 or visit him online at rayfelton.com.
Whether you're hosting a corporate event, wedding, conference, concert, or any other special gathering, our comprehensive range of services will exceed your expectations and elevate your event to new heights. RRT Productions. We shoot, we edit, you win. Visit our website at www.rrt-productions.com.
We've got the experience, the passion, and the beach to make your event a smash hit. Whether it's a romantic wedding, a lively sports venue, or a rocking high school dance, Troutland Entertainment has you covered. Contact them at 330-414-4261 or email them at troutlandent@gmail.com. That's troutlandent@gmail.com. Elevate your brand with Mako Custom Printing. Mako Custom Printing specializes in creating high-quality spiritware, corporate apparel, and promotional products that make your brand stand out. Whether you need custom printing, graphic design, or an online store for your school or business, we've got you covered. Make a statement with Mako Custom Printing. Visit us at mako.com to start your custom printing journey today. That's MEHCO.com.